So, what happens when the world's greatest magician and the creator of its most logical detective go to war over ghosts? We're about to dive into the incredible true story of Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and how their hunt for life after death absolutely destroyed their friendship. This right here, this one quote from Houdini, is the key to everything. You have to understand this because this public war, this huge feud, it all grew from a very private, very deep, and very human pain. I mean, what a matchup, right? On one side, you've got Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He gave us Sherlock Holmes, the ultimate rational mind. Yet, he passionately believed in spirits. And on the other, Harry Houdini, the master of illusion, who made it his life's mission to expose anyone claiming to have supernatural powers. So you have to ask yourself, how in the world did these two men with such completely opposite views ever become friends to begin with? Well, the answer, as it so often is that they were connected by shared grief. And this is what's so fascinating. The exact same emotion, this unbearable grief, sent them down two totally different roads. Doyle dove headfirst into spiritualism, desperately looking for hope. Houdini, on the other hand, investigated it, just as desperately looking for proof. Now, Doyle became so convinced that the supernatural was real that he came up with this wild theory about his new friend. He actually believed Houdini's escapes weren't skill, but that Houdini was a powerful psychic who could literally pass through walls. You can imagine how insulting that was to a man who had perfected his craft his entire life. So, you can almost feel it, right? There's this fault line running right through their friendship, and it was about to split wide open. It all went down one summer afternoon in a dark hotel room in Atlantic City. You gotta understand, Doyle was genuinely trying to do something kind here. He offered Houdini the one thing in the world he wanted most, a message from his beloved mother. His wife, Lady Jean, went into a trance and just started writing, filling page after page with what she said were words of love from beyond the grave. But Houdini, this is his whole thing, right? He spots the details, and he saw what his grieving friend just couldn't. The message was a fake. He saw three impossible mistakes. It started with a Christian cross. She was a rabbi's wife. It was written in perfect English, a language she barely spoke, and it never once mentioned that the séance was happening on her birthday. And this is the exact moment everything changed. Houdini kept quiet. He just didn't have the heart to tell his friend it was all a sham. But Doyle, he mistook that silence for belief. He went to the newspapers and announced that the great Houdini had been converted. That forced Houdini to go public with the truth. And just like that, their friendship was shattered. And the fallout, wow, it was immediate and it was vicious. What started as a private hurt exploded into a public war, fought in newspaper headlines and on lecture stages all over the world. So they basically retreated to their corners and the accusations started flying. Doyle insisted Houdini was a powerful medium just in denial about his own powers. Houdini fired back that Doyle wasn't a bad guy. He was just a brilliant man who had been tragically fooled by his own grief. You know, every big feud needs a final battleground, right? Well, for these two, her name was Margery. She was a famous medium being investigated for a big prize from Scientific American magazine. Doyle was her biggest champion. And guess who they brought in to expose her? Harry Houdini. See, here's the difference. The other investigators were looking for ghosts. Houdini was looking for tricks. And oh boy, did he find them. That bell ringing in a sealed box, she was kicking it with her foot. The megaphone flying through the air, she just launched it off her head when the lights went out. He exposed every trick, created a massive scandal, and made Doyle furious. And this is where it gets genuinely spooky. During one of these investigations, Margery's so-called spirit guide got enraged and issued a direct threat, a curse, right to Houdini's face. It was a threat that, just 2 years later, would seem unbelievably prophetic. But the story doesn't end there, not by a long shot. The final, strange act of this whole drama, well, it takes place after Houdini himself is already gone. And wouldn't you know it, he died on Halloween, almost 2 years to the day after that curse. But Houdini, ever the showman, had one last trick planned. He and his wife Bess had a secret code. If he could, he promised he'd deliver it from beyond the grave. It was the ultimate test. Can you imagine, for 10 years, every single Halloween, his wife Bess held the séance. For a decade, she sat in darkened rooms, listening to countless fakes and frauds, just hoping, waiting for that one real message. And then, on the 10th anniversary, after a decade of nothing but silence, she gave up. She famously said, 10 years is long enough to wait for any man, and she blew out the candle she kept lit beside his portrait. The great experiment was over. The message never came. But Doyle got the final say. In an article, he did something kind of brilliant, in a twisted way. He completely flipped the script on Houdini's entire life. He argued that Houdini's escapes were only possible because he was a powerful medium, and his whole career as a skeptic was just a cover. Doyle stole Houdini's legacy and rewrote it as his own. It is just this incredible irony when you really think about it. The man who created the ultimate rationalist, Sherlock Holmes, became a passionate, devoted believer in the supernatural. And the world's greatest illusionist, the master of deception, became the world's fiercest crusader for reality and evidence. And in the end, that's what their incredible story leaves us with, right? It's a question we all face. When what you want to be true clashes with what you can prove, which do you follow, the heart or the head? They each chose a different path, and in a way, their ghost war is still being fought inside all of us today.